Hello everyone, I'm Cassie, Marketing Specialist from Genscript. Today's topic for the webinar session is peptide application for skincare and cosmetics. I'm very excited to introduce you the presenter today, Dr. Yunyu Nie. Dr. Nie graduated from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She worked with peptide applications in cell-penetrating, cell-probe, cell signaling inhibitors, and antibiotic studies. Currently, she is working in Genscript R&D department as a senior scientist for peptide application development, testing platform establishment, and cosmetic peptide platform development. This webinar will take around 30 minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to type in the questions field that you can see on your screen, and we'll be answering them after the presentation. But if we didn't get to answer your question during the Q&A session, we'll be sure to take down and we'll email back to you. This webinar will be recorded and it will be available on our website after today. So lastly, here's the list of the upcoming webinars that will be rolling out for the following weeks. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Nie to start her presentation. So Dr. Nie, over to you right now.
Okay, thank you for your welcoming, and it's my pleasure to share you the topic about cosmetic peptide and its applications. So being a scientist in peptides, my working was focused on the cell-penetrating peptides and some cell signaling related topics. But later in, we found that the peptide had very important applications in cosmetic peptides. And also the skincare usually use cosmetic peptide as active additives. So today, I hope you can learn something about the skincare and the active peptides in it. So let's say the details in this talk. So first, I will give you some background about the cosmetic peptide, and then share you some cases about why it has such advantages, and some examples for the selling product. So I think everyone has faced some problems during your growth for the skin, no matter you have the wrinkle or acne or oil, and this actually troubles a lot for the daily life, and especially recent people notice that the hair have some losing problem during working and study. So actually all these problems can be solved by peptides. So with this information and these problems, I think from this time you can notice how to use peptide solving such problems. But how to choose cosmetics? And sometimes we can see many recommendations from the celebrities advertisement, or you tell your problems to a salesman and they give you the recommendations. But are this product the most suitable ones for you, and why they suitable for you? So coming to these problems, the salesman usually show you some flyers or advertisement, and told you that there are some activities in the product that can help you to solve such problems. Take this serum as an example. It can make your skin more porous and more lightly. And why they works? They told you that there are some activities like from the yeast extractions, and they show you some pictures to solve these problems. But customers usually lacking such information why this can solve your problem, and that's why people usually to see the ingredient in it. So being an expert in ingredient can give you a lot of information on choosing a proper skincare for you. So being a scientist and being from a scientific part, we usually choose to be more likely trust the paper beneath it and seeing the scientific evidence underneath. So we usually prefer to check the papers and see some signaling pathways to adjust the skin problems, And usually we prefer to see some of the data and give you clear evidence how these activities can solve the problem, like beneath your wrinkles or give your skin much health care. And how do we change the ingredient and the activities? Actually, this also needs us to see the workflow of how we identify the activities in the skincare. So here gives the time flow and some examples of the skincare product. And actually, each product it has the exact activity ingredient. So back to the early time, people usually prefer to choose petroleum as the protective for your oil skin or keep your skin more hydrated. And later, people say that from the herbal or biological resource, they can get some small molecules or small compound that can keep your skin attacked from the UV or sunlight. And later, people found that from the like salicylic acid or other chemical acid can help you to treat with the skin with the oil problem. And later, people found that all previous chemicals have the shortage in its stability and activity, and most importantly, they have potential safety problem and cause skin more sensitive. So in this time, researchers prefer to choose some more compatible additives from the biological resource like peptide. So in this case, peptides are added to the serums and make people find it is more effective and safe. And from the year of 2000, more and more products are addicted to the peptides. And even now, we come to the year for bioengineered or gene-related researches in the skincare product. But still, if you find the ingredient inside, you can see a lot of peptides are in it and keep as the most effective additives inside. So what is cosmetic peptide in this case, and why it is so magic to solve such problems, and so many products are choosing cosmetic peptide inside? So before answering these questions, have you noticed that some of the products are existing with the peptides? For example, I listed an acetyl peptide 8 as an example here. Actually, you can type in any ingredient searching apps or webinars. You can find a lot of related product inside. And also, there was an issue about the serum for the peptide between different regions. For example, in February, the Chinese serum noticed that there's no tripeptide 32 inside, and this difference makes the serum become not that reliable to the customers to choose. And even this topic was one of the hottest topics at that time to discuss why there's so much difference between the two different serums in China and in US. So these things actually reflects that being an ingredient and the most effective ingredient, peptide actually attracts a lot of notice. And for the reason why peptides have such effectiveness, it actually comes to the peptide itself. So actually, most chemical reactions and biological reactions are regulated by specific peptides. And the peptides are actually a fragment of amino acids. So no matter synthetic peptide or the natural released peptide, actually they have the similar functions. And that's why people say that the natural peptide can have certain biological interfere activities, and then we can use synthetic peptides also to have similar modulations. And later, as I told before, that the researchers prefer to use the peptides to modulate the skincare related topics, and find that peptides can treat the infections, pigmentations, cell proliferation and differentiations, and also other many cared fields in the skincare products. And here is some subtypes for peptides that can be treated with. And also with all this background, you can see that actually peptide has more outstanding advantages compared with the traditional adaptives. Like it has super activity, and also the mechanisms beneath it is very clear. And with this cleared mechanism, we can see that even a little peptide can modulate the cell pathway. And so this safe and clear approach makes the peptide has a high security compared to other additives. And also with the diversity of different amino acids, the peptide can have multiple sequences, and with different sequences, the peptide can modulate different pathways. And that's why the peptide can treat a lot of aspects like anti-wrinkle, or skin renewing, or whitening, and hair growth. So you can see a lot of related topics have such peptide inside. And the most often we can see this eye care and anti-aging products are prefer using peptide inside. And talking about the cosmetic peptide, and we catalog into different catalogs based on its scientific classifications. We can see there are a signaling peptide, there are carrier peptides, and also some like enzyme inhibitors or activators. But each type has its some most standard peptides as example. So I won't go into details for this slide, and give you the concrete examples and the recommendation of the exact peptide for the each classic. And by analyzing the cosmetic peptide in the market, we can see that there are actually over 70 peptides that can serve as additives in the skincare. And this version actually based on the Chinese version, but it has more candidates in the European or the US versions. And we just chose Chinese version as an example that there's 78 peptides that can be used as additives in the peptide skincare, and 37 of them are the most commercial used. And the detailed analysis find that 26 kind of peptides have clear mechanisms of action, and they are widely used in the whitening and anti-wrinkle, anti-aging, anti-inflammatory purpose. So that's why we usually recommend this 26 kind of peptide as the most hot candidates to produce the related products. And take an example for the different field. For example, the whitening as the first demanding in most cosmetic skin cares, and see that we analysis the causes of the dull skin and find that it was caused by the sunlight and also some other problems by the daily life, and all these causes can cause the cyclicalization of the skin, and if we inhibit such cell pathway, and it can give the skin a good time and choice to recover itself, and that's why we have the whitening peptide to interfere such signaling. And here we list some recommendations, and most of these peptides are the hottest candidates in the skincare field. And for the next one is the anti-inflammatory peptide, and this actually to solve the problem of the anti pockets, and especially this time when COVID-19 because of the virus, people need to put on the mask, and this and the long time wearing mask can cause the skin with very sensitive to the inflammatories, and the peptide actually can help to reduce the inflammation. And when we see the skin barrier is impaired, the skin is very sensitive and more likely to show the red or the itches. And when we choose the proper peptide like listed here, it can help to repair the damaged skin barrier and then increase the skin tolerance. And also this process can reduce the inflammatory inflammatory mediators to reduce the inflammatory responses. And inflammatory is one of the most hottest topics recently because of the masks, and we also listed our recommendations here. And the anti-wrinkle actually is one of the most effective problems that can be solved by the peptide. And here we analysis the one example that how the wrinkle was caused and how and why it can solved. We don't go to the details, but we can see here. Actually, the acetyl peptide 8 is a very good candidate to solve such problem, and this was actually the replacement for the boxstone, and it is much more safer because the chemical synthesis peptide is more pure, and all the contaminants can eliminate it, and much better safer than the boxstone. And also this chemical synthesis peptide is more flexible when do the downstream applications. We can make it as the serum, we can make it as the lotion, and it is more easy for the manufacturers to add such peptides inside the product. And here I listed one example here, which is used the acetyl peptide 8 as additives to reduce the wrinkle problem. And actually, this peptide was developed by the Lipotech company, and you can see from the example and in the 2002 that they conduct an experiment to see how this peptide can reduce the wrinkle. And we can see that no matter it is an existed and hard, deep wrinkle, all the very released and surface wrinkle, it can all be treated by this peptide very well. And after the 30 days of the treatment, it can give us a very good response that the wrinkle formation was reduced almost 20%. And most importantly, this peptide has no difference between the oil skin or the dry skin, and this is a very important part for the skincare researchers to do the formulation. And another topic is about hair growth, and we can see that actually the hair growth problem is existing no matter you are a student or you are a worker, and under the very hard stress that your skin, your hair may lose, and actually all these problems just because of the follicles that are not healthy. We can see that if a healthy one, it can grow the hair and with a very constant pattern. But if the follicles are not healthy, they reduce their ability to produce hair, and then the hair may be thin and less. And finally, if this follicle is not healthy, and it can totally lose its ability to produce hair. So in this case, we can see that if we want to promote hair growth, we actually are needing to solve the problems for the healthy condition of the hair follicles. So so in this case, we found that this peptide can give you a very good solution to strengthen the follicles and thicken the original hair and promote new hair and village growth. So in this case, peptides are actually more safer way to solve the hair growth problem. And the copper peptide is one of the most widely used peptide, and this peptide is somehow like a golden peptide for the skincare field. And why this peptide is so good candidate, and to answer it, we have done the research part for this peptide, and here is a timeline to see why this peptide it works very well in different fields of the skincare. Actually, from the year of the 1973, the tripeptide GHK was found to form a complex with the copper ion, and this crystal peptide have shown some evidence inside the human body, and it can help the skin and the wound recovery. And later, this peptide was found to stimulate collagen synthesis in fibroblasts. So in this case, copper peptides are actually being noticed by the skincare field. And later, scientists use this peptide on the mice to see that whether it can stimulate the hair growth or not. And they found that this peptide can help the mice to recover its hair, and this was shown very good result during the treatment. And also later, this peptide can be seen to solve the problems like the glycomization, and this was one of the topics hot even today. And later, this peptide can be seen to be regulating on the different skin care field. So in the year of 2008, a summary was published to prove that the copper peptide can promote the collagen synthesis and tissue regenerating, healing and repairing, and also anti-inflammatory and anti-oxidation reactions. So that's why this peptide can be found in a lot of serums that related with peptide additives. And here I listed some examples of it. The first one is a hair serum that can promote hair growth from Australia. And no matter from the women type or the men type, we can see that it all adds the copper peptide and also some peptide to have the maximum effect on it. And also these pictures are used to see that the copper peptide can solve the problem of the anti-inflammatory. And you can see no matter the angst or the red dots generally have a better situation after the treatment. And also this is a serum that can be used like have a night stay all under very good under very suppress the situation, and this serum can give you quick recovery of your skin condition. So actually you can see copper peptide can be added in a lot of applications. And when we go to the details of this peptide synthetic part, we found that a crystal formulation of this peptide is very important for its function. And we noticed that the synthetic peptide in this case is very different from company to company. And here are the cases we synthesis from the Genscript. We can see that it will have a very beautiful crystal and a very regular shape. But we also analysis our competitors, and their crystal are somehow smaller and not that regular shaped. And also, if the peptide cannot form the crystal with the copper, it's just shown as this powder. But actually, a lot of existing peptide producers just provide such product. So I think it is very important to choose a reliable suppliers in this case to have a better quality for the peptide. And one thing we also noticing that is the formulation of the peptide solution. In this case, we helped to solve the problems that for the manufacturing aspects, they prefer to use peptide solutions directly to produce their final product. This is a much more easier way for the manufacturers. But the peptide itself may have some characteristics to be analyzed before using. So in this case, we are helping to establish such platform, like we can treat the soluble peptide system or insoluble peptide system, and most importantly, some very complicated system, like we add some polyo or the liposome inside to enhance the penetrating efficiency of the final product. And I give an example here. If the peptide is incompatible with the final product, it just gives insoluble precipitants like here. And with optimized platform, we can provide you the solution that the peptide can give you a very stable and very clear situation. So we are also working on this solutions optimization, and here I give you one case about it. And take the soluble peptide system as example. The peptide are the active additives inside, and we also optimize the water component and other anesthetic system inside. And we analysis the characters of this peptide listed here. Like these peptides are more water soluble. So in this case, we can use some simple system. But if the peptide are synthesized or modified with some other component, the peptide property may be changed. And in this case, we need to optimize the whole system and give you the best solution to solve such problems. So make it as a summary, we can provide the peptide as the crystal form, the powder form, the solution form, and also we have already cataloged them into different use purpose, like these 9 text blocks, and all these are available on our website, and you can refer it to choose your targeted field, and we can recommend you the sequence and recommend you the solution platforms for it. And thank you for your watching, and if you have any problem or questions, just let me know. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Nian. Thank you for the presentation. So right now we'll move to the Q&A session. The first question from the floor: why crystal form of copper peptide is so important? Dr. Nian, could you answer this?
Sure.
Yeah, why crystal form of copper peptide is so important?
As we all know that the chemical or peptide self-function is related to the formulation of. So in this case, the copper peptide are preferred to more stable as a crystal, as a collage form with the copper. So when producing peptide or manufacturing the peptide, we prefer to see the crystal structure. And in this case, we can see that the copper peptide is successfully synthesized. Otherwise, it's only the powder form, the peptide function will be greatly reduced with its real functioning.
Okay, thank you. The next question: are cosmetic containing peptides will be more sensitive to skin? Is it safe to use for every skin types?
Well, in most cases, the peptide are the best choices that in the sensitive way to think, because the peptide itself is a compatible component with the human being. In this case, it is more safe, and but still we will recommend any test. We will recommend a test before you use any skincare product in advance.
All right, thank you. The next question: what is the difference between application of naturally hydrolyzed peptides and synthetic peptides?
Well, this actually is a very good question, because the peptide resource can be either by the natural fermentation or the synthetic way. But in this case, we usually say that the synthetic peptide is more pure, and we can control its contaminations. And the fermentation ones usually contains a lot of things that we cannot control. The real concentration of the peptide and other component is not that clear. So in this case, maybe these things can cause sensitive problems. And that's why we usually use synthetic peptide as the most addictive parts in the skincare products.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nian. The next question: in your slides, right, you mentioned that blue copper peptide has both hair growth and other skincare effects. So will it promote hair growth on face after applying on facial? Hi, Dr. Nian. Are you still around, Dr. Nian? Hello, Dr. Nian.
Hello. Sorry,
Yes.
it seems got some internet problem. Can you repeat the question again?
Sure, I'll repeat that. So you mentioned that blue copper peptide has both hair growth and other skincare effects. So will it promote hair growth on face after applying on the face?
Actually, this question is about the hair growth promote effects of the peptide. So in this case, the peptide itself just promotes the healthy condition of the follicle. So if the follicle itself can grow hair or some or such ability, it will have a good behavior. But on your faces, actually, the follicle have very limited ability to produce here. So in this case, it's safe to use copper peptide to do the skincare treatment. And also the peptide function is related to the concentration. So we just need to control the concentration of the peptide and do the adjustment or optimization.
Okay, thank you. The next question, a lyophilized powder peptide and enzyme solution can be stored at 4 degrees Celsius for a few days. So is it better to use them in just a few days?
Yes, the peptide is somehow more sensitive to compared with other additives, so it is better to use it as fast as possible, usually within 7 days.
Okay, thank you. The next question, in anti-wrinkle product, how long it has been used and is it a permanent solution?
I beg your pardon, sorry?
For anti-wrinkle products, right? Is it a permanent solution for wrinkle problem or is this just a temporary solution?
It's a long-lasting solution, actually. You can see a lot of anti-wrinkle product consist of this peptide, and the result of this with this solution is a time-dependent result. And in our cases, we listed acetyl peptide 8 as an example. You can see from the data that the 15-day data and the 30-day data is give us a constant reduce in the anti-wrinkle effect.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nie. So the next question, are Genscript peptides are synthesized by chemical approaches or biological approaches?
We, being a department of peptide product team, we usually prefer to use a chemical way to synthesis, because only in this way we can get a very high degree of purity and a very high restrict control of the contaminant. So that's why we usually use a synthetic approach to synthesis peptide.
Okay, thank you. The next question. The customer know that peptides are very prone to hydrolysis, but how can we maintain the peptide stability?
Yeah, stability problem is actually a very important part of being using peptide. And the hydrolyticity of the peptide actually is one of its nature character. So in this case, we are always doing the stability test for each peptide in this case, and also its compatibility to the final solutions, and see if there's any other component or chemicals that may cause the hydrolysis of the peptide. But luckily, most of the temporary peptides used in the market are stable. And for those extremely sensitive peptides, we prefer to use the freeze-dry form. And before the customer use it, they can prepare the solutions by themselves.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we'll answer the one last question before we end the session. The last question, is there any side effect using peptide-based cosmetics?
Actually, until now, no evidence shown that the peptide is reliable, dependable or reliable, that you cannot, you are addicted to. So in this case, I think it's most safe. It's not the hormone or some other additives. It's just the more safe than other components.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nie. So due to time constraint, we'll end the Q&A session over here. So for those questions that we didn't get to answer just now, I will email the answers from Dr. Nie back to you. So thank you, Dr. Nie, again for the presentation, and also to all of you who joined us today. I hope you find this session useful and beneficial. So thank you for joining us again, and have a nice day, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.